All right, so this is Canon's latest video-centered camera. This thing is absolutely crazy. It's got 7K video up to 60 frames per second, 4K up to 120, open gate recording, 12-bit RAW, ProRes RAW, active cooling in this, some crazy video features, and one feature that even Canon's $4,000 cinema camera doesn't have. So before I go test it with all of this, let's talk specs, because this is not the first time we've seen this particular spec list in a camera from Canon, but I think this is the camera we're going to appreciate all of this stuff on the most. Now, I do have BTS of all of this over on IG, and all the gear I've been using in the description below, so you can go check all of that out. Now, if you watched my R6V video a couple of months ago, this might sound pretty familiar because this is basically the same sensor as that camera and mostly the same internals, just in a different hardware, different body. And it's really just insane reading this out for a camera that's at $2,500. 7K video up to 60 frames per second, 4K video up to 120 frames per second, 2K video or 1080p up to 180 frames per second, and all of that is with audio. No special tricks needed to get those kind of frame rates on that, and 4K video is actually oversampled up to 7K all the way to 60 frames per second, which just means you're going to see massive amounts of detail on this, and all of this is in full frame, although there is still a crop mode if you do need that extra reach. You have DCI 4K, you have regular 16:9 4K, you have open gate recording, so you can record the entire 3x2 sensor, which gives you the same width as regular UHD 4K, but now you have more vertical room as well, which is absolutely massive if you have to use content for both horizontal and vertical, which happens to me all the time. I think it's an extremely useful feature, and I'll break it down a little bit later in this video, but it's just one of those things that once you have it, it's tough to go back to any camera that doesn't. And you also have ProRes RAW, you have Canon RAW internally, you have 8 or 10-bit options for regular H.264 or H.265. Now, technically, all of those features are on this camera, the Canon R6V. In fact, this basically has the same internals between the two of these cameras, but this is just that more photo-centered body. It doesn't have some of those hardware features that are nice for video. Plus, this lacked any kind of active cooling. And so if you were trying to record things like 4K 60 or 7K open gate, 4K 60 with oversampled, things like that, I live in Florida. It's hot as crap right now. If I wanted to do that for 30 plus minutes, I would just always be worried about overheating. And hopefully on this, it's no longer a massive issue. And so it just kind of feels like all of those specs that I loved on the R6V, I can now fully utilize on this camera in more real world environments and the crappy heat that I'm going to be faced with all this summer. And so, yeah, this just makes it a much more cohesive camera. Plus, we have this more video-centered hardware. So you have a tally lamp up front. You have a zoom rocker, which is really cool, especially because Canon is announcing this lens, the 20 to 50 millimeter f4. It's announced today. More on that a little bit later. But you can control the zoom of this lens via the camera. You can control it via the app. Canon has a Bluetooth remote that you can use as well. So if you're self-recording, this could be cool to be able to control the zoom remotely. I also use a camera car pretty often, and for that, being able to remotely control my zoom lens without having to rig up anything special or get out of the car and zoom manually, this is going to be amazing. But it is only a zoom rocker, and this is the only internal powered zoom I think that Canon has right now. So until we have something else, this is pretty much the only thing it's going to be good for. I will say that the 20 to 50 millimeter range, like that would be my perfect zoom lens range for my camera car rig. So I will be taking this camera on track with me next week with this exact setup, and I'll be able to control my entire rig remotely via the zoom on it, which is going to be pretty awesome because I haven't been able to do that before without rigging up a lot of external stuff. Canon does have a 24 to 105 millimeter f2.8 with an external power adapter that you can use to be able to control the zoom. So maybe that PZE2 support is going to come to some more lenses, or we're going to have some more of these zoom lenses as well. Now, this is a pre-production unit. I can't do full image quality tests with this one, and I have noticed a few bugs, so I want to give it a couple of weeks to let that iron out, and I do have a production version on the way. So we're going to save some of the tests for kind of the full long-term review in a few weeks. So might as well hit sub and turn on notifications so you can actually see when that drops shops, but I do have a few tests later in this video that I had to do anyway. But I really do want to break down this hardware because actually this is the first time that I have used this style of like video cinema camera body from Canon. And it might be your first time as well, so good chance on that one because they don't have a whole lot of them out. It did like take me a few days to kind of get used to it, but overall I would say I'm pretty happy with the style on this one. The custom buttons on this are everywhere. Like I can count 7 custom buttons, dedicated custom buttons around the body, plus you have a D-pad on the back, which has an additional 4. And there's just a lot of different things that you can customize on this camera. It does feel kind of a little bit more plasticky when you pick it up for whatever reason, but it is also lighter than I expected. So I measured 678 grams with a battery and SD card on my scale. It feels like both substantial and compact because you have a good amount of thickness to it. The grip feels really, really good. But then it also kind of chops off this top from some of the other cameras that I'm used to using more on a daily basis from Canon. And so it's not all of that tall. There is an extra record button up front as well. You have the tally lamp on there. You have dual cards. So this is a CF Express and SD card like the R6V. I don't think that there's any like perfect card layout right now. I'm not a fan of having 2 different types of cards, but CF Express, they're just so fast, and if you need very large file sizes, there's some of the cheapest formats that you can get as well. And if you want to shoot things like RAW, you're going to need that. So I get why it's here. And then you also have an SD card, which I do like because you can buy them anywhere. They fit in my MacBook Pro without having to get a dongle or any kind of card reader for it. So it's great having those too. So yeah, it's 2 different cards, which is kind of annoying when you're dual recording, but you kind of get the best of both worlds if you want to pick a format. And if you're shooting regular H.264, H.265, 4K, even 7K open gate, you can do all of that on regular SD cards as well. So probably a win overall. You also get a tripod screw on the right side of the camera, which is really awesome because I can see a lot of people wanting to mount this vertically, and that makes it so much easier. Like you don't need a cage, you don't need any extra rigging, and I actually see this being a massive feature because I do this kind of thing all the time. Now we have a 3-inch flip screen on the back of the camera, pretty par for the course. I would have hoped maybe a little bit larger. There's no viewfinder on the top. Everything is kind of flush mounted. There is a hot shoe with digital audio support on this one, which is great. We have a full-size HDMI port. We saw that first with the R6V. Canon was doing these mini HDMIs for a long time. So glad to see that completely gone. There's no mechanical shutter at all, which I know you don't technically need a shutter for video at all, but this is great if you want to close the shutter when changing lenses so that you don't get dust on the sensor. That's how I use it the most on the R6V when I'm shooting video, and it's not here. So that's kind of a bummer. I'm a huge fan of having this feature, but it does mean that if you're using this camera for photos, because remember, like this is an amazing photo camera. This is a 32 megapixel sensor, same as the R6V. A lot of the same features on this. It can shoot 40 frames per second photos with that 32 megapixel sensor. So it's really an insane camera, like photo camera. But since we only have an electronic shutter, it does mean that you would probably see some rolling shutter, maybe some banding if you're shooting a lot of like fast movements, golf swings, things like that, or bad artificial lighting. Now, there are a few quirks with this camera, to steal a line from Doug, for those of you guys in the car world, and it would start with oversampling. So oversampling is a really cool feature. It's in a lot of cameras these days, and this camera can oversample up to 7K, which is one of the best. If you oversample, you'll get noticeably more detail. You'll get an overall cleaner looking image, which is absolutely awesome, but it is more power intensive and it can be more prone to overheating. And again, like this is for all cameras. There's no difference in how this works, and it's not a Canon thing. But yeah, if you use this, it can be more prone to overheating. And Canon is actually one of the only ones that basically allows you to record in oversampled mode, aka fine mode is what they call it, or a none oversampled mode, which is less work on the camera. So if you do want to record for like 4 hours, you can basically put this in the none oversampled mode and you can record all day long, basically unlimited without having to worry about anything.
Also, 4K 120 is not going to be oversampled. It does not have a fine mode. And again, this is pretty typical for most cameras. So we should see a little bit of a detail loss in that mode and some of these non-oversampled modes compared to the ones that does. Also, this does appear to have some form of a dual gain, dual ISO tech, right around the 6400 ISO range. So when I was shooting in log, and I was shooting video at 6400 ISO, it's just extremely clean. And even 12,800 ISO is definitely in the usable stage. So this is going to be a really powerful camera, even in low light. I'll also test overheating a bit more when I get the full production unit. I didn't want to do that now, but I live in Florida. It's crazy hot already, so just stay tuned. Yeah, we're going to have a lot on that one. Now, if you look at the menus on this, there's a couple interesting things. So this is basically a similar type of menu system to like the R6V. Canon lays out a few things in their video mode that I do think are a little bit confusing, especially if you don't already know the specs of the camera. It's almost like this puzzle with random things just kind of like grayed out on the camera or missing entirely, and you need to figure out like what you need to do in order to unlock more features. So for example, if I want 4K 120 and it's grayed out right now, in order to unlock that, I need to go to the modes and select none fine mode because 120 frames per second doesn't have a fine mode, and then it appears. Now 7K open gate, this is going to be available in RAW or H.265 up to 30 frames per second with multiple bitrate options in between, because this is going to be awesome, because every time I see like 7K recording, 6K recording, open gate, they're always so limited into how you can use them. But the R6V has some of the most usable formats of any camera right now for using 7K or open gate. You also have waveforms, you have false color, you have zebras, you have IBIS, which is really awesome because Canon didn't include any internal stabilization in the Big Brother C50, which I think is a mistake. It's the main reason I didn't get that when that came out, because I use it so much. And so this is a crazy set of features for a camera that's only $2,500 with cinema camera hardware and active cooling. But there are a few things that I could nitpick here. The first is going to be this 3-inch screen, which it's just a normal flip screen. There's no fancy 4-axis craziness like Sony and Panasonic are doing with a couple cameras. There's no viewfinder up on top. It's kind of like par for the course last year. But this year we have things like the ZF, or the Nikon ZR, because that has a 4-inch screen, which is absolutely nuts. It's less money than this camera. Sony threw in this like cool viewfinder mechanism into the FX2, and so it would have just been nice to see something that would help with viewing on this camera. The other is that we have a ton of custom buttons on this, but what you can set those to is a little bit more limited. So for example, like there are quite a few options that you can change, but I couldn't make the back dial or any custom button actually control my mic volume. I could see my levels, but I couldn't control them. So I have to then hit the Q mode and then scroll until I get to this audio mode, and then I can change it. But this Q menu, like I can't change the things in here. I can't reorder them. I can't customize this at all. And so, yeah, there are quite a few controls that you can pick from. There's just a little bit of limitations. Also, there's a few menu items that you just can't access at all. Some of are a little more obscure, but like I can't change my frame rate. I can't change my resolutions without going into the menu system on this one. There's no shortcut for any of the buttons that I can set. And the last thing is that there isn't really any anamorphic support for or help with shooting anamorphic. So Canon has like D-squeeze options in their professional C50, which I guess technically is their cinema camera. C stands for cinema, and this is their video camera, V, I guess. And that sounds way more consumerish, but anamorphic support would have been amazing. This is a camera for it. We have open gate recording and 7K video. Like, oh my gosh. Now, you can still shoot anamorphic lenses. It just doesn't have like those built-in D-squeeze options. I really think it's a big miss, though. I hope we can add something like that back via firmware, because I think it's too important for a camera like this to leave something like that out. But again, Canon does have the C50. They know that exists, and you can get it if you want to, if you're willing to give up image stabilization and $1,400, which I'm not so sure that that's going to be worth it for me. I really like what we're getting in this camera right here. But we're definitely at this point where almost every camera is amazing and just some cameras do some things better than others. So the competition for this, you have the Sony FX2, which has this cool viewfinder, but it is the most expensive and is also the oldest, and it is my least favorite of all of these under $3,000 video cameras. So in my opinion, it's the worst. It has horrible rolling shutter. 4K is the highest resolution you can go. There's no open gate. There's no internal RAW options. You can't even shoot 4K 60 without a crop on that camera, which is the biggest miss. It's the biggest reason I didn't get it. That camera works really well on a tripod for things like this, for filming YouTube videos, interviews. But even then, if you had open gate, then you could repurpose that content for Instagram so much easier without having to crop in like crazy amounts. So it would allow for better reframe and post. So in my opinion, even that is a big miss for that camera compared to something like this. It's my least favorite of the bunch. And then Nikon threw out the ZR, which is their first camera after taking over Red, which even that was nuts. You have this insane 4-inch screen, which once you use it, it's really tough to use anything else. It has internal RAW, 6K video. But what's not great is that you have to shoot that internal RAW in order to get the full 6K video support or open gate. Otherwise, it's going to drop you to 5.4 gate or 5.4K in standard 16:9, which is still better than Sony. And that 5K can shoot up to 60 frames per second in full frame, which is still better than Sony, and it's only $2,200, which is way cheaper than the Sony. And then you have the Canon R6V, which essentially is the best of the bunch. It has the highest resolution at 7K, the best oversampling at up to 7K. It frame rates up to 120 frames per second, extremely low rolling shutter, the best support for open gate, and it's right in the middle with pricing at $2,500. So the R6V is now the video camera to beat, like pretty clear. And that's without it being the most expensive of the bunch, which is really awesome. And if you throw a monitor on this camera, essentially you now have the bigger screen and you now have anamorphic support, which pretty much solves my only misses with this camera, essentially making this the best camera that you can buy for video today, especially under $3,000. So pre-order links down below, but I also have my favorite lenses, cards, and everything else that I use with the R6V in the last couple of weeks in the description down below. I also try to respond to every comment you guys have, so let me know what you think of this camera, and I'll get back to you as well. I have a whole lot more testing on this, a ton of BTS over on Instagram. Full review coming out soon in the next couple of weeks with the production unit, so hope you guys are doing amazing, and I'll see you then.